just for you and me. The dogwood was never to grow strong and tall again.
Hello everybody, my name is Lonnie Jones and this is my story and God's story, I guess you might say, of all the things that God's done for me. And we would like to invite you today to episode 27. I think it's episode 27, best I remember. Maybe 28, I don't even know. Okay, I've been told it's probably episode 28. I'm gets old, I can't remember nothing anymore. But at any rate, this is a little story that I'm trying to tell of some of the things that happened to me during my lifetime, which was not all good, not all bad, but if it hadn't been for God, would none of it have happened, basically. And I believe on episode 27, I was talking about the reading of the fortune tellers and what they told me that I was going to come into, what was going to happen to me. And you'll remember everything happened to me that they said was going to happen, except we're down now to where the man said I was going to come into a lot of money. Now, he didn't say that was going to be cash money or whatever, but I was going to come into a lot of money. Well, this is quite a deal here, actually. And of course, I was in Huntsville, Alabama, owned a home down there, and if you remember, the man was supposed to give me 10% of what I brought in there and put out of the company, which it turned out in the end, I seen that was not going to happen because we'd landed these contracts I had, and I saw I wasn't going to get my money, so I wasn't very anxious, I guess you might say, to stay there. But I hadn't made any intentions, actually hadn't made any movements that I was going to move or anything. And because I hadn't had the home about 6-8 months that I had bought down there. But anyway, I saw that I wasn't going to get what I was promised, and I really didn't know what I was going to do about it. And in the meantime, my brother passed away, and he was in Houston, Texas. My oldest brother passed away. So I was going to go down and went down to his funeral in Houston, Texas, and my sister rode down there with me from Ashland City. And the story backs up a little, and while I realized I wasn't going to get what I was promised and everything, I was on my way to see my brother to go to his funeral, and I called back into the shop where I was running, the plastic place that I was running, and they had hired just a salesperson. In the meanwhile, they had hired just a salesperson that sold boxes and everything, and he wasn't going to be a salesman. He wanted to work there, and he had them all convinced, or had the bosses convinced that he could do this and he could do that and so forth. And I knew pretty quick right off the bat that he was going to be a knife in my back, and I was sort of prepared for that as well. So on my way to Texas, we were down around Arkansas, Texarkana, in that area. I made a phone call back, and I was informed at that time that business was so bad that they was going to have to lay a lot of people off. Well, if you remember, I had several girls that worked for me. As a matter of fact, I believe I had 4 girls that worked for me at the time at the shop there. And the reason business was going down, I found out as I was going along, is they were trying to pull the businesses away so they could get rid of me. It was all a plot to get rid of me. Well, the girls loved working for me. I was good to them. They were making more money working for me than the people he had working for him over at a plastic injection molding shop. He was paying them $6 and $7 an hour, and I was paying my girls $10 an hour because they was putting the work out. So there was a conflict here of what I was doing versus what he was doing. He was basically wanted, he was greedy. I use the word greedy a lot of times. When you get greedy, you lose it all. You end up losing everything. So he was greedy. He wouldn't pay his people nothing. He was mad because I was paying my people more than he was paying his people. And so he wouldn't pay me my 10% that I was supposed to be getting after landing. I already had landed several $100,000 worth of work, and I was still getting about $750 plus expenses is all I was really getting. So I saw the light that I was not going to get it, and he had brought this other guy in, and it was a whole deal of maneuvering to get rid of me. Well, while I was gone to my brother's funeral, made the phone call, and he let me know that there was going to be a big layoff there, and I was in the layoff. Well, without me there, guess who's going to run the place? Huh? Somebody had no clue, but that's okay. That's no problem, because 90% of the people of the work that we were getting in came from Nashville, Tennessee. And they all personally knew me that I was getting the work from anyway. So let's go ahead on down, and I am going to my brother's funeral. I go to my brother's funeral, come back, and I get there, and of course the first thing they do, meet me over there and clean out my desk, and I'm basically fired. Well, what they didn't know was, as soon as I found out what was going on, I contacted all of my people that I was getting the work from. Told them I was moving my company, I was moving everything back to Nashville, Tennessee, and for them to send no more work down there. I got with my girls. Now, you talking about, you got to think about this just a minute. I got with my girls. They lived in Tony, Alabama, which is real close to Huntsville, about 10 miles from the place. They lived down there. One of them had a full-size basement. Well, when I pulled my work out of Nashville, Tennessee, I bought me a U-Haul truck. I bought me a 16-foot U-Haul truck. I started getting my plastic cut up here. Now, this is all happening. I'm talking about this stuff is happening within 10 days. Because what he done is he laid the girls off too to make it look good by laying me off. He turned right around a week later and calls the girls back to work. Well, I had done talked to the girls. And the girls seen what was going on, and I told them what I wanted them to do. I said, I'm going to bring you the benders down to your house. I'm going to bring the tables down to your house. We're going to put them in your basement, and we're going to run the operation out of your basement, and you're going to get a $2 an hour raise. Well, how about that? Old Lonnie Jones, old country boy with a 3rd grade education, thought all this up. I mean, 9th grade education, thought all this up in 10 days. Those girls, I moved everything that I had. Well, don't forget, if you remember, the company that I had sold a year prior to that, I had bought all that equipment back, remember? I had bought all that equipment back. So I had that equipment, all the forming equipment, everything to bend, and the tables, I had everything. So I carried that down to the girls, to the mama of one of the girls in the full-size basement, and they went to building those parts for me from down there. And they wouldn't go back to work for him because they were already working for me, making more money than he was going to pay them. Because, and plus they were mad at him anyway because of how he done us and them. But he had this work that he could not get out because he had nobody to get it out. Because the girls were working for me. and I'm hauling this stuff in the snow. Now this was in the fall of the year when all this happened. By wintertime, I was going back and forth to Tony, Alabama twice a week with this U-Haul truck, getting all this stuff that they was making for me. I would carry them a load of plastic down there. They would bend it, glue it together, put it in the boxes. I would pick it up, bring it back to Nashville, and sell it. I never lost a beat. I never lost a beat. Out of Larry's grand old garage right here. When those girls started working for me, between what they were doing in their house, what I was doing here at Larry's grand old garage, which at the time, I had my house in Huntsville, Alabama that I had to sell. Well, it wasn't any trouble to sell, so I sold the house in Alabama and moved back up here. And God had everything in the world to do with all the things I'm talking to you about right now. Had everything in the world to do with it. He gave me the ability to figure out that I get the girls to do this work. They could get paid more money. I would make more money. And I got ready to get rid of the house, and I put the house on the market. Of course, I did not have a place to live up here. Remember, I was living on a cot in the corner of Larry's grand old garage where the stage is right now. Because I would come up here and spend the weekends, remember? Spend the weekends up here and go back down there on Sunday. Well, when I sold that house, I still had my cot up here. I was still living here in Larry's grand old garage, right where the stage is at. I was still living there. So I put the house up for sale and sold the house just like that and made about $8,000 off the house because I had had it less than a year when this guy pulled his trick on me because he wouldn't pay me what he owed me. And he knew I wasn't going to stand for it. So the best thing he could do to lay everybody off, well, he laid everybody off, kept his so-called salesman he had. Well, it turns out the guy, he didn't know nothing. He didn't even have a clue of what was going on. So here I am, sell my house in Alabama, make a few bucks off the house. I'm still living up here in Larry's grand old garage anyway. So I've not lost anything. I got rid of a house, and I had bought furniture. I sold house, furniture, and all. I sold everything. Because I had nowhere to bring my furniture when I come back up here. I had nowhere to bring the furniture. So the best thing I could do, sell furniture, house, and all. And I did. And I made money off of the furniture even that I had. But anyway, that's something else anyway. But got rid of the house. The girls started making parts down there. I opened up at Larry's grand old garage up here. I rented one side of the big building that's outside where he had built for the working on his buses. One side he wasn't doing nothing with, so I set up a shop on one side of the big shop, and I was making parts up here, and the girls were making parts in Tony, Alabama for me at the same time. Well, you think God didn't have anything to do with me getting rid of that house as quick as I did? Furniture and everything. When I came up here, I didn't have nothing but my clothes. I rented a, well, actually I didn't rent it. Well, I was pulling this big trailer, so he let me borrow the trailer to bring my clothes up here in. The old man I was working for let me borrow the trailer, brought all my clothes up here, and I carried his trailer back. So all I had actually was my clothes and my guitars and fiddles and stuff like that, and my truck when I came back up here. And so they were making parts in Tony, Alabama. I was making parts here at Larry's grand old garage on one side of the bays where the big buses, he worked on the big buses. I was making parts there. And I was doing that off of what I had went back and rebought back from the company that I had sold out 2 years prior to that. So everything's going along real good, and I'm stockpiling parts over here at Larry's grand old garage. I got several $1,000s worth of parts already made up and selling them out, and I had these parts all made up, and someone bought the company that I was making the most of my parts for, which was a book company. It was I don't remember what the name of the company was off the top of my head, but there was this big book company, and they had these displays all over the United States that I had made. And I had a batch of them and just had sold all I had, and I didn't have any on hand. And this company I was doing all this work for sold out to another company. Of course, this as soon as they sold out to the other company quit making. They took the displays that I had already made, bought all the books, bought all that up, and then they changed vendors. Whoever was making their parts, if they continued to make parts, someone else did. I didn't do that because I lost a huge contract. I was doing somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 a week for this company. And I mean, I was doing really well. Of course, when they sold out, and it was at the dead of winter, and it was 2000, and it was in the dead of winter. Well, actually, it wasn't. Don't think it was January. Let me think just a minute. Let me see. I'm trying to think exactly when they sold out. I think they sold out right in the middle of January is when they sold out. But I had made all these displays and sold all these displays, and I had several $1,000 in the bank actually. Well, when they sold out, then it took nearly all. It took all but $20,000. I had $20,000 left after I paid my bills. I had $20,000 left. Well, meanwhile, Larry Clemens had passed away, and his wife wanted to sell Larry's Grand Old Garage. And I had $20,000, and I'm in business for myself. And I'm not drawing no paycheck from nowhere else, so they made me put $20,000 in the bank and leave it in there for 90 days before I could own Larry's Grand Old Garage. It wasn't Larry's Grand Old Garage then, it was the little house on the corner and the big garage out here and everything. That's what was here. Well, in order for me to own that, I had to put only $20,000 I had, because it took everything else to pay my bills. And I had some other work in here, but it wasn't big work or nothing. And Gary Adams, which plays mandolin and banjo for me, he worked for me. He come to work for me when I moved back up here from Alabama. I believe it was 1999. I believe it's correct. So he came in and went to work for me and was working with me during the same process that we was working in Alabama and up here as well. So anyway, I was basically, you might say, broke all of a sudden, other than the $20,000 for me to buy this little house here and this property that we're sitting on at 549 East Maple Street. I was basically broke. I was having a hard time even paying the light bill, and at that time the house had gas heat, and gas was sky high in 2000. Go back and check what gas was in 2000. It was so high that come springtime, I changed it from gas back to electric heat because gas was so high, just couldn't afford gas. So anyway, meanwhile, I have lost all this work, and I've got just enough work to keep Gary busy. I got enough work to keep Gary busy. So what I did was, in order to pay my bills, I went down to Nashville and I got a job down there making $12 an hour in maintenance. Working $12 an hour. Of course, it had a lot of benefits because it was like a HUD building. It's 18-story high rise, and it wasn't a nursing home or anything like that. It was assisted living is what it was. Well, I got a job there at $12 an hour, so as I could pay my bills. And I was really struggling to keep Gary busy with what little we had and pay him, and then pay whatever was left of profit from there. Because again, very little work did I have other than that one big contract, which I lost from them selling out. Well, then that made me have to cut the girls off down in Alabama. So we lost the contract, so that means the girls down there didn't have nothing to do. So I go down there and get all my equipment, bring it back, and set it up down here in one side of the garage. Meanwhile, Larry has passed away. Larry Clemens had passed away during this time we're talking about here. And that's how come me, with being able to buy Larry's Grand Old Garage, is his wife wanted to sell it. She didn't want to stay here and wanted to sell it. So I was able to put the $20,000 in the bank, leave it in there for 90 days, and this all happened in the fall of the year. Because Larry passed away, I believe in October of 99, I believe he passed away in October 99. And at that point, that's when I had to put the money in the bank and leave it there 90 days, and I couldn't touch it. And again, that winter, the water bill, but the gas bill got so high and everything was high that I couldn't pay it through what I was doing and keep Gary a job too. So I let Gary run the plastic place, and I sort of helped run it from downtown Nashville where I was working. And so I was in Nashville working at the high rise as a maintenance man. Gary was out here working in the plastic. He was still getting a payday, and we were still getting a little bit of work out, but we didn't have any work that amounted to anything. Now, here comes God along. Guess what? God comes along, and he looks into this situation, and lo and behold, I went to a picking down in Hickman County. I went to a bluegrass boy's birthday party. And it was a birthday party for a good friend of mine, and I was invited to go down there and play. And I wasn't married. I was single. I wasn't married, and I had already quit drinking. I wasn't drinking or anything like that. But everybody down there was drinking, which is, you know, I knew that before I went down there. They was all going to be drinking, but I knew I wasn't going to be. My drinking days were over. So I go down to the birthday party, and I'm standing around picking, and it's pretty chilly out there in an old bar and everything. And these two women were standing over in the corner by themselves and are listening to somebody else picking and everything. And I got my banjo out and started picking around a little bit. And one of the women walked up to me, and she was smoking a cigarette, and I didn't smoke anymore. I didn't quit smoking. I'd quit smoking, I'd quit drinking, but I was right amongst everybody that did. And she walked up to me and said, well, can you play Foggy Mountain Breakdown? So I said, I think so. So I played Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And I played something else they wanted to hear, and they just love bluegrass music. And so she gave me her phone number and told me to call her sometime. Because I was single. I wasn't married to nobody. I wasn't going with nobody. I was by myself, living by myself and everything. She gave me her phone number. And about 2 weeks later, I guess, something like that, about 2 weeks later, I just happened to think, I look that phone number up. Now, God is in on it. God's right in the middle of all this. He is so in the middle of it, you would nobody believe it. I was really, really struggling to pay my bills and everything. My money was in the bank to pay for Larry's Grand Old Garage, and this is January. And the 15th of January is when we're going to sign the papers for me to own Larry's Grand Old Garage. I was living not in the house. I was still living out on the stage in a cot. Is where I was still living at, because his wife had not moved yet. until we signed the papers and everything. So we had signed the papers then on January the 15th. I took possession on January 15th, and I think I was down there at that birthday party. I believe I was at that birthday party somewhere around 1st of January. I don't know the exact dates on most of this stuff, except that I know we signed the papers on this house and property here on the 15th of January 2000. And I don't know what the exact date was that I was down at the birthday when I played the Foggy Mountain Breakdown. The girl gave me her phone number. But I remember about 2 weeks later, I looked the phone number up, found the phone number, and called her up. She lived out in Bellevue. She lived in Bellevue. Well, I picked up the phone and I called her. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, nothing. I just got home from work." I said, "Well, how would you like to go down to Station Inn tonight? So-and-so was down there." Guess who it was down there. I can think, if I think real hard, I could probably think of it. But we'll go down to Station Inn tonight if you want to and watch them, because she loved bluegrass music. And of course, I did too. And so she said, "Well, so you're going to have to give me about an hour to get ready." I said, "Well, it'll take me 30, 40 minutes to get there anyway. So I'll pick you up." And I think I picked her up about 7:30 because the show at the Station Inn started at 8 o'clock. And so I did. I went out. And when I went into this subdivision, I expected to find a house in the subdivision. Well, I kept following the road, and directly I ran out of paved road and started up this driveway, which was concreted. It was concreted about 20 foot wide, and went right up, straight up this hill almost. And up on top of this hill, I go top of the hill, and there sits a 3-story log home. I'm talking about a big log home. I'm talking about probably 4,000 square feet, just roughly 4,000 square foot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop at this point right here, and we're going to play a couple of tunes for you. And I'm going to stop here, and we'll go into, I believe we'll be in 29, be our next episode. I'll go into 29 and tell you about, and don't forget, God's right in the middle of all this. And don't forget to come to church on Sunday if you get a chance to. If you don't, you can always watch us. It's Friendship Missionary Baptist Church at 101 Flat Ridge Road, Goodlettsville, Tennessee. So I'm gonna cut it off and come back and tell you a little bit more. Behind me there, this picture you see behind me here, Rita and I went down to West Tennessee and bought a houseboat. And I took this picture off the Cumberland River, bringing our houseboat, which I'll tell you about that later on in part of my life history. But I took that picture right there you see behind me with my telephone from the front of that houseboat. And that's looking at First Avenue going up the Cumberland River towards Old Hickory, Tennessee. Isn't that a beautiful picture? What a picture that camera took from that telephone. So anyway, I'll let you go at this point. We're going to do you a couple of pretty numbers here, and I'll be back on episode 29, okay? See you in a few minutes. Thank you. Let's do one go. She's gone, gone, gone. I guess I did not believe her. Oh, look at the trouble I'm in. She's gone, 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 gone. Crying won't bring her back. The more that I cry, the faster that train flies farther on down the track. Picket butterball. I won't ever
faster that train flies, farther on down the track. Found you where I could find her, roll her on my hands and knees. He stick off the clocks every reminder. He gone no farther from me. He gone, 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 gone. Crime won't bring her back. The more that I cry, the faster that train flies, farther on down the track. Yes, farther on down the track.
All right, she's gone, gone. So we're going to do 32 acres here right now. Can we kick that off, Gary?
I saw the timber for the cabin floor, looked like thin out of locust bowl. I worked the corn row in the early morn and raised a family on a poor man's farm. 32 acres of bottom land, bought and paid for with my own hand, worth a fortune to a working man. 32 acres of bottom land. A peach tree, now the leaves are dying. Watered a grapevine, it's no longer mine. The county's taken everything I own, 'cause it's on the right of way for a 4-lane road. 32 acres of bottom land, bought and paid for with my own hand, worth a fortune to a working man. 32 acres of bottom land, 32 acres of bottom land. 32 acres of bottom land. Jesus died on the cross from a dogwood tree. He gave his life and soul just for you and me. The dogwood was never to grow strong and